Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and today we are counting down your top 17 most annoying watch trends that need to die out immediately. I did ask you all on Instagram for the watch trends you dislike the most, and boy oh boy, we got quite a few, so thank you all for sending in your suggestions. So for this video we are first going to start out with the more, tame suggestions and then work our way up until we, all board the hate train together at the end with the trends that so many of you want to be gone forever. So let's get started. First up, we have male end links. Links on a bracelet are these individual parts that put together, form the entire bracelet. The end link is the last link of the bracelet that attaches to the case, which can be divided into two categories, a male or a female end link. With female end links, you have the first center link coming from the case. With a male end link, you have a center link that is sticking out. Depending on the type of link, it can really impact the fit of your watch. So for example, the previous generation for the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch had long male end links. The current version of it has shorter female end links. Depending on your wrist circumference, the male end link version might be too big for you, making it not look as great on your wrist. So yeah, for lots of people, male end links are a deal breaker on some watches. Next up, we have something that really broke my heart because I personally, love it, but hey, the community voted, so here it is, rainbow bezels. A bezel is basically the rim or border around a watch dial and on a watch case. Lately, we have been seeing lots of watchmakers incorporate colorful diamonds or, sapphires on the bezel designs. Some more or less tasteful, I guess. Very recently, we had the Bond Seamaster from Omega that was highly debated, or, the classic Rainbow Daytona from Rolex, for example. That is also pretty controversial. Rainbow bezels tend to be not only super expensive, but also extremely hard to get, since sourcing, the right colored gemstones isn't an easy task. And well, yeah, they are pretty, loud and out there, so I get why many of you want them gone forever. Ladies' watches equal diamonds, small cases, and quartz movements. And what can I say besides amen to that? Most of the time when you look at the, women's section on a watchmaker's website or, within stores, you will find teeny tiny watches adorned with all sorts of diamonds and mostly equipped with quartz movements due to their small size, which not only makes them ridiculously expensive for what you get, but also, pretty boring in terms of watchmaking. That's not to say that women and men can't wear whatever they like, in terms of watches, but hey, it's, pretty lame when you go to some big watchmakers website like Jaeger LeCoultre and then you click on ladies' watches and then boom, instant diamond overflow, as if watches for women are only able, to look a certain way. It really sucks. Number 14 is not publishing any info about the lug-to-lug measurements on the website. And absolutely, I agree. It is one of the most important measurements to determine whether or not a watch has the potential, to fit you, and the fact that watchmakers still only very rarely, put the info out there can be really frustrating. I mean, take Nomos, for example. Great watches appeal to so many, thanks to their minimalistic and modern designs, paired with German watchmaking. But those lugs are super long. And if you're not careful, you will end up with a watch case that is sticking out like there's no tomorrow. But if you, knew the lug to lug beforehand, which is, the distance between one end of lug to the other, you can then, just measure the top of your wrist and see whether or not you like it that way. Next up is the persistent practice of not putting in a hacking second as a standard. A movement with a hacking second is stopping the seconds hands as soon as you pull out the crown to set your watch. That way you can make sure to set it as precisely as you want, since seconds hand does not keep on running while you fumble around with the minute and the hour hand. Because without the hacking second, you would ideally have to wait for the seconds hand to pass through 12 and then have your minute and hour hand at the right time and push down the crown at the exact moment to have your watch set precisely, which just gets really annoying. This one I also take an issue with non-tapered bracelets. I don't think I can think of a scenario in which a non-tapered bracelet would be preferable on a watch. So a taper means that the links on the bracelet are technically, also a strap as well, I guess, shrink down a bit towards the clasp, making it look, more elegant and refined. A big offender here is definitely Grand Seiko. Great watches, amazing design, but those bracelets look so clunky or chunky. I mean, look at the Oris for comparison. How sleek it looks with a nice taper. I love it. Really makes a world of difference. And we continue with the bracelet onto the clasp, and that is when watchmakers are putting in all their effort into the case and dial and perhaps even the bracelet too, but then completely messed it up on their clasp. We've had so many great watches in the recent months and years that were, pretty great, but their clasps were, pardon my French here, complete which ruined the entire thing. I mean, I'll probably get hate for this because the watch world seems to be divided on this one. But I think a good example here is the Zenith Chronomaster. Great dial, amazing movement, fantastic proportions, and then horrible clasp to bring it all down. It's just really disappointing. Ooh, and next up we have limited editions. And no, not the ones which actually, make sense every once in a while because, there's actually a good reason for it to be limited, perhaps because of a, certain collaboration, an actual meaningful anniversary or, a milestone, or maybe because of the manufacturing process. But, those limited editions for the sake of being a limited edition, there are a lot of offenders in the watch industry who keep pushing out so many, and I have to use air quotes here, limited editions of basically the same freaking watch that you end up not only super confused but also extremely bored at a certain point in time. Same goes for the millionth homage or re-edition after re-edition watch. Homage watches are, as the name gives it away, watches that are meant to pay homage to a previous model or design idea or concept, which sounds very nice in theory, but some watchmakers are really, churning out homage watches and re-editions non-stop, which makes you feel like they haven't had an original thought in decades. Tudor, for example, came out with a Black Bay 58 in 2018 to pay, homage to their earlier dive watches from the 60s, but lately they have been putting out more and more of them in slight variations. And at some point, I'm sure we all like to see something different for a change. And something that is really, really closely related to that issue, but is a bit more, specific, are all these 70s Gerard Genta inspired watches that have been coming out. Gerard Genta was a Swiss watch designer and the mastermind behind some of the most iconic watches in history, like Audemars Piguet's Royal Oak or the Nautilus from Patek Philippe. Those are very distinct looks, and these specific watches are still carrying the brands until this day. But unfortunately, it feels like right now we are stuck in this 70s inspired purgatory of current watch releases that won't seem to stop anytime soon. And there's the Tissot Pierre X. You've got the Zenith DeFi Classic, Girard-Perregaux's Laureato, and so many more. Another trend that seems to be really on the rise are thick or thicker cases, which mostly means any watch case with a height above 30mm or more. Sometimes you will need a bigger watch, or case to allow room for certain complications, like a tourbillon or a perpetual calendar, which is fine, I get it. But yeah, that's not always the case for some watches with only a date, but a height of, 50mm, which is just too crazy to wear. I guess the next one is more of a pet peeve rather than a trend that needs to die, but I absolutely get it, and that is putting a date or day complication at 4 o'clock. Usually most date or day complications are on the horizontal or vertical axis of a watch dial. For example, the Rolex Submariner has its date at 3 o'clock or the Omega Aquaterra at 6 o'clock. But some watchmakers choose this super awkward 4 o'clock position, which oftentimes throws off the entire symmetry of watch face, like Grand Seiko or Blancpain, for example. And now we are almost at the top, so let's start our countdown to the top 5 most annoying watch trends you all wish would die out immediately. So number 5 are odd, or more specifically, uneven lug widths. Knowing your lug width is essential if you want to replace a strap or bracelet, because you really have to make sure that it fits perfectly so it won't be too big or too small to just fall out. The most common lug width is 20mm followed by 18mm. So you've got even numbers, everything is fine. But sometimes you end up with a watch with a 17, 19 or 21mm lug width, and you have to jam in that watch strap and make it work somehow, which sometimes isn't too bad depending on the strap material, but it can be really frustrating with some watches and their odd lug width, since it's very difficult to then find a properly fitting strap that you also like. So yeah, that's a downer. Number 4 is all about the fake patina, or FAUXTINA as someone like to call it. It's basically when watchmakers artificially make their watches look vintage and worn, even though they are brand new. An interesting example here is the Longines Heritage Military. It has this ivory dial with these little dark specks on it, which is imitating, you know, an aged white dial. Some people say it's, you know, a good compromise for people who enjoy the vintage look but don't want to deal with the issues vintage watches might bring. But for the majority, it seems to be an absolute no-go. That needs to go. Number 3 is focusing on the functionality, and that is new watches being released without a quick change system for the strap or bracelet. Most of the time you will need a special watchmaker tool or a very, you know, tiny screwdriver to push back the spring bars or pins on the bracelet to detach it from the watch case if you want to change it. But more recently, some watchmakers have started to build, you know, in a little quick change mechanism, which lets you take out the strap or bracelet without needing any tools, which isn't only more convenient, but also, and that's very important, minimizes the risk of you know, damaging your watch in the process when you're trying to, you know, fiddle around with the metal screwdriver on your watch. But as I said, it's only some watchmakers that do that and not everyone. So yeah, let's stop with making things overly complicated and give us a quick change system with every watch, please. Something very similar to this is our point number 2, and that is the missing quick adjustment option on bracelets or clasps with new watch releases. Again, it's a question of convenience. Of course, you can take out your felt mat and you get out your little watchmaker kit, turn on every possible light in the room, and then stay away from any sort of caffeinated drink an hour before you want to adjust your bracelet. But honestly, who wants to do that every time the wrist starts, you know, swell? Making your watch feel uncomfortably tight, or when you're just, you know, maybe sharing watches with a significant other and want to make it fit to your or their wrist. Some watchmakers are really helping us out here by putting in, you know, half links or other form of quick adjustment options to adjust the size of a bracelet up to, you know, half of a centimeter sometimes without needing to take out any links or using any tools. It is really nice, and especially if you're, you know, fluctuating in wrist size during, you know, the day or just, you know, the seasons when it gets warmer. It makes sharing watches so much easier for so many people and just makes everything more convenient and more comfortable. It's also not rocket science to incorporate mechanisms like that, but yeah. We still don't get it with most watches, which is really annoying. And now, before we go to the most annoying watch trend that needs to die this year, according to the watch community, I want to bring up some, you know, honorable mentions that didn't make it into this list, like honorable mention number 1, watch boxes being way too big and way too heavy. So you end up struggling with finding a good place to store them, which is super annoying. And yeah, can we please stop that? I absolutely agree. Second one is shitty websites in general that really seem to be an issue within the watch world. I don't know why. Sometimes navigating through websites of even, you know, very popular and very established and in-demand watchmakers are a true nightmare. And don't get me started on responsive website design for mobile. It's a nightmare. And lastly, putting anti-reflective coating not only on the inside but also on the outside of sapphire crystals, because it can sometimes rub off or, you know, create an unwanted visual effect, and, you know, people really seem to hate it. Right, and your number 1 top pick of watch trends that need to die is, drumroll for this one, of course, it's a Tiffany blue dials. I mean, yeah, I get it. Though I have to say that personally, I actually really like it. I can totally see why people are so over it right now. But let me add that with Tiffany dials, we basically mean every, you know, shade of this baby blue turquoise dial color that came out after Rolex introduced their Oyster Perpetual line, which included a turquoise dial. Oyster Perpetual that was meant to pay homage to old, colorful dials of the vintage day dates from the 70s and 80s from Rolex. The whole entire genre of Tiffany dials is called Tiffany dial because the iconic bluish green Tiffany, you know, color the jewelers is known for, who also made, you know, a Tiffany stamp dial for another icon, the Nautilus from Patek Philippe. So that's why we'll call it just Tiffany dial. And so nowadays we can see this influx of turquoise colored dials since everyone wants to take part in this huge success. But I don't know, at this point it really isn't a novelty anymore and people seem to be already over it. So yeah, I get it. And here we have it, 17 of the most hated and annoying watch trends you guys want to banish forever. If you think there's something missing from this list, make sure to comment your most disliked watch trend in the comments down below. And let me know if you agree with this ranking and list or not. As always, if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, I recommend subscribing to my channel. I post a new video every week about watches and, you know, everything watch related. And, you know, make sure to hit the bell to get notified whenever a new video is live so you won't miss out on anything. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!